Hi, everyone. This is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. This is my ongoing story, a whole bunch of stories. There's over 420 videos now, where I'm sharing my personal story of my trauma, my family history, in order to give a two-sided perspective on trauma, meaning one as the trauma and abuse survivor, and the other one as the certified trauma recovery coach or the mental health professional. And it gives me a unique perspective in order to be able to share with you some insights that may not have come into clarity for you until this time. Anything that I can help you with to help put your trauma picture together. Another way we say it as trauma coaches, connecting the dots. What happened to you? And help you to understand that there is a logical way of sorting it out. And sometimes we've referred to this as becoming the observer self. So we can look at it objectively, step back or get up in the sky and look down at it, but we become the observer self. And then we learn to understand more about what took place to bring me to this moment of not feeling so good. And how on earth do I fix it? How do I recover from this? How do I heal the wounds that are inside? Because that's ultimately the big question in trauma recovery. How do I recover from this? And so any resource that I can share with you, it means the world to me to be able to do it. And this video might be a little bit triggering for you. I always put a trigger warning and an age restriction on all of my videos. I always have the age restriction of you must be 18 years of age or older unless you are accompanied by a primary caregiver, a parent, or a licensed medical or mental health professional. My hope is that people will not be, how do I say this? Watching these things and being a little bit on the young side and then not having the support that they need to process what they're hearing about or what they're learning about. And the last thing in the world I want to do is put anyone into an unsafe situation. That's why there is a warning. There's trigger warning on every one of my videos, and there is an age restriction on all of my videos. That is the reason why. Well, today I'm asking if you have not become anchored and grounded before watching this video, now would be a really good time to pause and do that for your own health and well-being. And I forgot to grab my a grounding tool, so I'm going to grab one real quick. I have it's a round tray on a coffee table right in front of me, and it has a whole assortment of different grounding tools in there with a beautiful glass jug and a potted plant. It's a green jade Hoya. Anyways, I picked up this one today. It's really smooth. It's a little beach pebble from Lake Erie. So today's discussion. Oh, I almost forgot. If you have not, and there's no shame in this, if you have not so far in your life learn about how to become anchored and grounded, it's okay. You don't have to worry. I made a special video for you. If you go to the video feed for my channel, I have shorts and I have full-length videos. If you scroll down in the list of videos to special episode number 57, it's entitled How to Prevent and Handle Triggers. And it was made for you so that you can, it's about an hour long. I think it's like an hour and 2 minutes. But it goes over lots of different things that we can do that are really simple. It only takes just a few moments to do them. And they go such a long way in helping us to remain calm, to help us to stay grounded. Grounded in what? The complete phrase for that is grounded in ventral vagal. That means that our nervous system has a branch of the 10th cranial nerve, and that is the ventral vagal, and that is it's a nerve in our body that goes from the base of our skull and down into our body, and it is in charge of bringing us into a state of calmness. It is the thing that is always involved in when we become calm. And so what we're trying to do is train our bodies how to be in ventral vagal. It's a state of being in ventral vagal, meaning in a state of calmness, and to be able to maintain that state of calmness even when we're hearing things that could be triggering for us. And it doesn't mean we're shutting down. It does not mean that. It doesn't mean we're going numb. It doesn't mean that we're plugging our ears in some sort of weird energetic way. No, we're not shutting anything out. We're actually taking information in, but being able to stay in a state of having our mind and our body connected, meaning even though I'm hearing this and I'm thinking these thoughts, my body is experiencing a sensation that I'm doing on purpose. It's intentional. It's done mindfully. And that helps my mind to establish I am not off where that terrible thing happened that we're talking about. I'm right here. I'm right here, and I'm in this room, and I am with myself, and I'm safe, and I'm okay. And even though we're talking about this thing which I do not like, I'm reminding each moment, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, I'm reminding my brain, my body is speaking to my brain and saying, you're right here. You're not where that happened 14 years ago. You're right here. And it's not happening. That's a memory. This is reality, and that's a memory. And it might sound really redundant to you right now, but I can assure you, it is absolutely fantastic to know this information. It is freeing. It is empowering. It is, the best word for it is what it's named. It's grounding and anchoring. We feel anchored and grounded. And that is essential. It's priceless. It's amazing. And it doesn't cost you anything except for just a few minutes of your time to learn how. It's one of the most brilliant things anyone has ever taught me. So with that being said, we understand a little bit more now about being anchored and grounded, but now it's time for me to speak about today's topic. I just wanted to introduce you to a human being today, an incredible human being. This human being has made an incredible, incredible contribution to the world of trauma recovery and psychology as a whole. I've never met him. I've only seen photographs of him, but I've read his book and parts of his book again and again and again and again and again, because certified trauma recovery coaches, when they are certified through the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaches, or the IAOTRC, like I was, we have that book listed in our syllabus. And the very first thing we are given when we sign up for the class, they send you the syllabus and they have the books, the reading lists that are required for becoming certified. And that was on the top of the list, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. So in case you haven't looked him up, I'm going to give you a little bit of information today about Pete Walker. Okay. And then after I explain who he is, I'll give you this little piece of information that is on Google. Then after that, we can talk about some of his concepts. Okay. So I'll be setting my little grounding tool down for a minute to do this. Okay, so Pete Walker, and he is Pete Walker, MA, MFT. That's his credentials. Pete Walker is a licensed psychotherapist, MFC 25210, with degrees in social work and counseling psychology. He is a general practitioner. I have to tell you, I am too. Certified trauma recovery coaches can be specialized, or they can be general practitioners. And I am a general practitioner. Just wanted to tell you that. So, who has a private practice in Berkeley, California, in the serene Claremont Hotel neighborhood. He has been working as a counselor, lecturer, writer, and group leader for 35 years. And I don't know what year this was written. It could now be longer than that. And as a supervisor and a consultant of other therapists for 20 years. Now, what supervisor means is all mental health practitioners, and I'm a mental health practitioner, we're all required to go to something called supervision. We must go to supervision. Supervision are ongoing classes, and as long as you hold credentials to practice, you're required to attend supervision. And supervision simply means that a supervisor, a person who's been practicing for years and years, is the leader of the group. All of the students in the class that show up for supervision class are already credentialed mental health practitioners. And then when you go to supervision, you can bring a case that's especially tricky for you, and you present it. The supervisor will invite the class members, the students there. They will invite them to say, well, has anyone brought a case today? Has anyone brought a case study that they would like the group to brainstorm? Has anybody found a particularly troubling case that they're a little bit stuck on and could use the input of all of the other mental health professionals that are here that will guide you and give you some insights and maybe some new directions to go that you perhaps may not have thought of? And so when it says here that Pete Walker is a supervisor, I am pretty certain that that is what they are referring to in this description of Pete Walker. So Pete specializes in helping adults who were traumatized in childhood, especially those whose repeated exposure to abuse and or neglect left them with symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD. If you're not familiar with PTSD and CPTSD, here's the difference. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a condition that can only be diagnosed by a mental health practitioner or a medical doctor, okay? I was diagnosed with PTSD by a medical doctor who is, licensed to and credentialed to diagnose. He was a psychiatrist, and it was after I had a severely bad, horrific, traumatizing car accident, a high-speed crash, and it was very, very damaging to my body and to my life, and it ended my career. And that happened in 2015. And so I can tell you that PTSD for me presented as I could not stop reliving the accident. It was running on a loop inside of my head. And I was seeing the car coming up the ramp. I was seeing it coming close to me. I could see what the split second when my eyes locked onto the eyes of the driver in that car. And we were both screaming. And I have my grounding tool right here. And the impact of his car hitting my car, he T-boned me, but we saw each other for a second before it happened. And I felt my sternum break and my ribs break. And I didn't know at that time that it was ribs and sternum. All I knew is that something in my chest broke, and I didn't know if it was like something like a torn aorta or something horrifyingly dangerous and deadly like that. Okay, so I was absolutely frightened out of my mind. And every sound, every smell, everything that I could see, everything that my body was feeling, all of that fear and terror could not stop running on a loop inside of my head. And when I went to lay down to go to sleep at night, there it was, playing like a screen, like I was at a drive-in movie, and I'm just seeing it playing out, and I can't shut it off. I shut my eyes, it's still there. I keep hearing and seeing and smelling and just all of it and feeling. So I went to a doctor and I told him about this, and right, without hesitating, he said, yeah, you've got a pretty good case of PTSD going on. I'm going to treat you for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I said, well, how do you know it's PTSD? And he said, because you can't control this. You can't think it away. You can't wish it away. You can't control it. Your brain is doing things in its autonomic functions, and you're reliving it. And there's medication and things we can do to help this. But when I told him that it had been well over a month since my accident, that I was not able to sleep through the night anymore, it took away my ability to sleep through the night, not just because of PTSD symptoms, but also because of severe pain that my body was in. So he said, we're going to start you on a medication today. They started me on a medication called amitriptyline, and I needed to take it once per day at bedtime. I don't know the chemical values of amitriptyline or what classification of drug it is. I don't know any of that. I didn't even study that or think about it. I just took the medication because I was so desperate to be helped. And what that medication did, I was only on it for about 1 year. And what it did was it really helped back down the symptoms of the PTSD so that I could have that feeling of a rest. I just wanted to take a break from it. I wanted even just an hour where it wasn't happening to me. And so we can get really, really, really unwell. We can get very, very sick physically, emotionally, psychologically from not having treatment of our PTSD. And so now I'm going to speak about complex PTSD. PTSD is generally thought to come from a single incident or a certain time in your life. And it's highly, in so many people's minds, PTSD is so closely linked to military service and combat zones. It absolutely is. It is no doubt in anyone's mind that combat veterans experience post-traumatic stress disorder from the situations and incidents that happen to them. But if you're in that situation and you are a combat soldier and you have an incident of post-traumatic stress disorder from something like a roadside incendiary device or something like that, what happens is you could be exposed to those all over the place in a region. And you might have been deployed there for 2 years, and you may have been dealing with this multiple times per week or daily. That's still considered PTSD and not complex PTSD because it's stemming from a thing that you went there to do, but it wasn't like that all over in your life. It wasn't, you didn't have that already when you got there. It was sudden onset, and it was a brief period of time. Now, to a combat veteran, 2 years does not feel like a brief period of time. Even in the best of situations, if you're deployed and none of that explosive injury or threat is going on, it's still traumatic. It is highly traumatic to be taken away from your family, taken out of your normal environment, your regular environment, taken from your home, taken from your job, taken from everything that you love and care about, and then go into this completely foreign environment. It doesn't have to be something that happens just one time, and then that's PTSD, and everything else is complex PTSD. It can be again and again and again and again, but it's in a compartmentalized time period. Okay. Now, when we get into complex PTSD, that is much more associated with long-term, ongoing, varied types of trauma. And it can be just one, but over a long period of time. It could be, from long-term verbal abuse from one parent or one sibling, one grandparent, over an extended period of time. But what makes it complex PTSD? It's complex PTSD because A, it did go on over a long period of time, and B, it may have been something that affects, it is especially noted by emotional dysregulation. Does PTSD have emotional dysregulation? Of course it does. Of course it does. But with complex PTSD, there might not be the constant terrorizing memories. There might not be something that is just shutting you down, like in a really big way. It could be more, it's possible that it was really big and intense, but it could also be a very low background hum of intolerable conditions, intolerable people, intolerable expectations. And I'll give you an example. So a person could, I'm sorry to say, this is such a hard thing to say. A person could experience a one-time sexual assault, and that will give them PTSD. But another person who has been molested by a family member over their entire childhood and into their adolescence, some of them even into their young adulthood or adulthood, that would be more associated with complex PTSD because it is a longer, more intricate, more involved, involving more people, involving more places, involving more details. And I hope that I'm helping you to understand this. I'm hoping I'm not confusing you and making this harder for you. But just off the cuff, if somebody were to ask me, what's the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD? Those are the examples that I would give. Okay. One incident in one time frame, or a bunch of incidents in a short time frame, but having to do with it wasn't there for long periods of time in your life. It was a shorter incident, and it was intense, and it was enough to make you have interruptions in your activities of daily living, meaning sleeping, eating, socializing, working, just anything, exercising, all of these different things. It will interrupt those things. And that is one of the ways that we gauge how much and how intensely a person has been traumatized. If you're a certified trauma recovery coach or mental health practitioner of any kind, you'll be familiar with something called an assessment for ADLs. That means activities of daily living. If you are having interruptions in your activities of daily living, then those interruptions, the more of them you have, the more intense your after effects of your trauma have been. Okay, we refer to them as after effects. So if you have complex PTSD, or if you have PTSD, you're going to have after effects within you. And they're going to be relational, biological, emotional, psychological, and neurobiological, which means pertaining to your central nervous system. Okay, that means that you're going to have difficulties with the actual structures and processes and chemicals of your brain. Okay, so I hope that clarifies for you. So complex PTSD is Pete Walker's specialty. And he created this amazing tome of information for us so that we can understand it. Mental health professionals can understand it and help people through their symptoms and help them resolve and recover from their complex PTSD. And it says right here in print that he also works with people who experience PTSD. So I'm just going to read this. He specializes in helping adults who were traumatized in childhood, especially those whose repeated exposure to abuse and or neglect left them with the symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, starting in childhood going on a long time. Now, if it didn't start in childhood and it went on for a very long time, could very, very well still be complex PTSD. So Pete's most popular book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, is now also an audiobook. I'll pause here for a moment to say, if you want to read that book and you cannot afford to purchase it, please do not worry. Pete Walker made sure that his book is on YouTube and it is free. It's absolutely for free. And you can listen to the audio version of his book on YouTube. Just put in a search for Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. It'll come right up and you can enjoy that book for free. I love having an actual hard copy of the book so that I can highlight sections of it. And so that I can pull out a section from a chapter and make it a focus of a video that I'm making, meaning not plagiarizing his work, but using that statement as a jumping off point and always, always, always crediting the author for their intellectual property, because that is what human decency does. Okay, so well, it says here that it's his most popular book, which means there are other books, but we'll get to that in a moment. It is the logical extension and evolution of the work presented on this website and in his first book. It deeply explores the causes of PTSD that range from severe neglect to monstrous abuse. Many survivors of traumatizing families grew up in houses that were not homes, in families that were as loveless as orphanages and sometimes as dangerous. And I'll pause here for a moment to say, I understand it's even possible that those, and there are still many people on the planet who did grow up in orphanages, and in some parts of the world, they still exist. The United States has scaled way back on that and has a completely different system now, as we all know. But there are many people who are alive who found more love in the orphanage where they were raised than in the home that they had to be removed from for their own safety and survival. And so, yes, I understand that an orphanage absolutely for some people could have been the place that was more loving than home, where someone did care about them. But I also know that there were many, many, many experiences where people were not loved, seen, held, heard, cared about, or told, you matter. I understand that. It's heartbreaking. Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving is a comprehensive, user-friendly, oh boy, is it user-friendly, self-help guide to recovering from the lingering effects of childhood trauma. It is an overview of the tasks of recovering. Another way to say that, to help you understand, I know that it's not complicated. I'm not saying that you're not intelligent. I don't mean it that way at all. But the reference to an overview of the tasks of recovering, that means he's telling us there are action steps. We do need to do things to recover. We don't just have to think to recover. We don't just have to feel to recover, but we do need to take actual action steps. And they are far, far more doable than most of us would likely think. And an illumination of the silver linings that can come out of the effective recovery work. It's a beautiful way to put it. It means recovery is real. You'll see real results, and everyone is capable of having those tangible, visible, palpable changes in their life through how they feel and their new understandings. It contains a great many practical tools and techniques for recovering from PTSD. It is also copiously illustrated with examples of his own and others' journeys of recovering. Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving is now available in Spanish, German, and Chinese. And it shows you the links here to get those books. And this is all from www.pete-walker.com. So Pete's first book, The Tao of Fully Feeling, Harvesting Forgiveness Out of Blame, is also now an audiobook. It has been acclaimed by many therapists and clients as a powerful, compassionate, and pragmatic tool for guiding recovery. Alice Miller, author of The Drama of the Gifted Child, Pete Walker wrote a book about his own recovery from emotional numbness. The author passionately explores as thoroughly as possible the role of emotions in human life. The result is not only a moving, honest recount, but also an informative guide for people who want to become more aware of their troubled feeling, of their varied feelings. Walker's well-explained concept of reparenting will help them go through this fascinating process in a safe, protected way. Pete's new book, Homesteading in the Calm Eye of the Storm, a therapist navigates his complex PTSD. It says PTSD, but obviously means complex PTSD, is a companion book to his complex PTSD book. It is a memoir of his journey of recovering, written in a more playful, easier to read style than his other books. It is a poignant and humorous and relatively free of psychological jargon. One of the reasons his book was recommended, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, one of the reasons that it is recommended through the IAO-TRC for all of its students, not recommended, it's required. But the reason is because it has a whole lot less psychological jargon, which means new students can digest and absorb this information without having to run to a psychology books and a thesaurus over and over again. It means that we are able to just get right into that subject matter without the fancy language. It's not written only for psychotherapists and other license holding mental health practitioners to read. It's for everyone, and it's beautifully written. All right, so sorry, my phone keeps locking and I have to go back into this. Okay, so in part one of Homesteading in the Calm Eye of the Storm, Pete escapes from his dysfunctional family and backpacks around the world seeking happiness while unconsciously fleeing his suffering. In part two, he wanders the jungles of psychological theory and technique and shifts his focus from global adventurer to inner world explorer. Gradually, over time, his fear shrinks, his toxic shame melts away, and peace of mind becomes his touchstone. His psyche gradually heals as his capacity for self-kindness, self-care, and self-protection continuously and self-protection continuously grow. At last, he breaks the pattern of being attracted to painful relationships that mirror his experiences with his parents. This in turn frees him to find a number of truly intimate and comforting relationships. Eventually, he is blessed with his own functional and loving nuclear family. So the 3 books here, there are direct links where you can go to purchase his books. Purchase The Tao of Fully Feeling is one link. Purchase Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving is another link. And the third link is purchase Homesteading in the Calm Eye of the Storm. All of these books are available as paperbacks and ebooks. The first 2 are also available as audiobooks. So this is, again, you can find all this information at www.pete-walker.com. It's WALKER. Okay. This is a short video today. I just wanted to share with you that there is, when we're speaking about trauma recovery, there's infinite resource out there for you. And one of the hardest things about getting started in our trauma recovery is for us to get past the shame of even wanting to look at our trauma, because we can be caught in the feeling of, I have been conditioned from the cradle to never betray my family. I am not even supposed to say out loud that I had traumatic experience. I'm not even supposed to say out loud or dare think that I had abusive parents, or that my parents were drug addicted, or my parent was an alcoholic, or that there was sex abuse in my household, or that there was incest in our house or in our family. It may be intergenerational from, grandparents and grandparents to their parents, and then the parents to the generation that you were in. There are so many things we're conditioned to do not look at it, do not speak about it, do not define it, do not go there. Don't go to the elephant graveyard. It's just a reference to Lion King, because every time I think about that, that's what I hear in my head. It's like the parents warning us, do not go to that elephant graveyard. Don't you dare. And yet, if we want to heal, if we want to begin to feel good, because we're infinitely capable of feeling good. What does feeling good mean? It means getting from the place of being in a state of shame, in a state of feeling abandoned, a state of feeling shut down, a state of feeling numb, a state of feeling guilty, feeling wrong, feeling injured, feeling crushed, feeling unseen, unheard, uncared about, a state of rage, a state of anger, a state of feeling incredulous or disbelief. I still can't believe this is real. We can be walking around in a state of feeling like none of anything feels real. I feel like I'm caught in some sort of matrix or animation of some sort, but I feel locked out. I feel like the meme in the box. I'm locked in. I have a feeling of being locked in or locked out. Neither one of them is very helpful in our feelings. When we recognize that all of this, I have a really, really basic, redundant name for all of that. I don't feel good. I don't feel good, and I can't remember the last time I felt good. I want to feel good, but I don't even know how to begin. It's gone on so long that I can't figure it all out. And I feel guilt and shame for speaking against my own mother and father, even alone in the house with not anyone to hear except for my puppies. I feel guilt and shame for saying anything out loud or even in my inner spirit. And some of you, I'm not kidding, might be like me and so fearful that when we're thinking about what happened to us, we're so fearful that our family will find out that we're the one who's the truth teller, and that we're going to get punished, we're going to get shut out, we're going to be banished, we're going to get abandoned. And for some of us, sadly, it does happen. My hand just went up. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people. When I started to be a truth teller, oh yeah. Yeah, about maybe 3 to 4 years ago, when I said out loud to one of my siblings, well, with Dad having been an alcoholic, and she said, wait, what? What did you just say? And I said, well, part of this is because Dad was an alcoholic. And she said, what on earth are you saying? Are you saying that our father was an alcoholic? And I'm like, sure sounded like I just did, didn't I? Don't mean to be facetious, but geez. Yeah, I did just say it. She said, why on earth do you think that? I said, because of the daily consumption of alcohol and drunkenness. That's why. And she said, well, I know he drank every day, but I didn't think he was an alcoholic. And I asked then, what did you think? And the answer was, I don't know, but I didn't think he was an alcoholic. And she could not wrap her mind around the fact that I just said our dad was an alcoholic. I have no doubt in my mind that he was. And she just could not go in that direction. And she said, really? You really think that? And I'm like, no, I don't think that. I know that. How could we be raised in the same household and see the exact same things. And I get to adulthood and I'm like, yeah, my father was an alcoholic. Yes, of course. And one other sibling is saying, no, he was not. You can't be right about that. Yes, he drank every day and he was drunk a lot, but that doesn't mean he was an alcoholic. This is the disconnect. This is such a common disconnect for a person who has been raised in trauma. They can go numb, they can shut out, they can build a false reality. Denial is not just for people who are in addiction. Denial is for any adverse experience that we've ever had going on. And many of us, that's how our brain handles that complex trauma. And so when we get to a certain point, every one of us, it's a different place in our lives, but we recognize that we don't feel good. And we say, I'm now tired of not feeling good. I'm looking at all the other people out in the world and I see all this sublime living. I hear people saying, oh, we're going to the Mexican Riviera. Or we're going to Cancun. And we go every 2 years. It's wonderful. We love it. I'm like, there's people who are doing an enormous amount of stuff and they don't seem to hesitate. It seems to just flow naturally from them and they're naturally flowing in it. Why am I not there? How did I get to be a person who lives the way I do? Shut down, numb, isolated, not having a good time. How did I get here? And how do I get out? How do I feel good again? I just want to feel good. I want to be like everybody else that I see that's functioning. How do I get myself from where I am right here, right now to that? How do I get there? And some of you may be saying, I've been going to therapy for 13 years. I go, the same day of the week, and I've been going and going and going. I might have switched practitioners a few times, but I was still taking the medication, still going to therapy, still sitting there having that, go to the psychiatrist and have the 15-minute visit, if that. Usually it's less than that. And I'm going to therapy with a psychotherapist. And they're still trying to get me to meditate. And I still don't feel good. What's wrong with me? Something must be really wrong with me. I'm such a tough case to crack. Nobody can fix this. Maybe it's because it's entirely possible. It's because you have a series of events that have happened to you that have caused you to feel awful inside. And maybe they're focusing on the symptoms of that, but not looking so much at root cause. They might not be asking you. I went through this. I started in 1997 and I went through it for years and years. But I was going to psychotherapy and I was seeing a psychiatrist and I was on medication, and no one, not one person, ever just pulled up a chair in front of me and just compassionately looked into my face and said, honey, what happened to you? What was done to you? What was your childhood like? What was daily life like in your house? What was your school like? Where'd you go to school? Did you like your school? Did you feel bullied in your school? Did you feel bullied at home? Did anyone sexually abuse you? Did you experience anything that was intolerable, hurtful, shaming, terrifying, injurious? Did anyone do those things to you, or were you exposed to them? Did you have to watch those things being done to anybody else? Did you ever have food insufficiency? Did you have racist parents? Did you have an unhealthy grandparent, extended family relationship? Did you have extended family? Where did you live? What were the conditions like where you lived? I'm astounded right now in this moment. Nobody ever asked me those things. Going to therapy for years to treat depression as if all that was wrong in my life was that my brain had an imbalance of brain chemicals that caused me to feel depressed. Some of you might be sitting up a little straighter in your chairs right now, hearing that. We can heal our trauma when we begin to talk about our trauma and when we're invited in a safe place to speak with an attuned, compassionate, caring human being who understands the connection between what happened to me way back then, or even last week at work, or yesterday in my neighborhood, or when my family was together for Sunday dinner. All of these things, when we verbally ventilate to one caring, compassionate, attuned, trauma-informed, confidentiality keeping, respectful human being who can look at you and say, I hear you, I see you, I feel you, you matter, and I believe you that what happened to you was real. And now I'm going to help you by giving you resources, and I'm going to work with you side by side every step of the way for you to find your path to feeling good and knowing that you are worthy of feeling good. It's your birthright. This has been a really good conversation. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If you feel that my channel helps you, if you find value in it, please share it with other people. Share it on whatever platform, social media that you like to. Send links to it in texts and emails to your friends. I would love that. It would help my channel to grow. It will help the trauma and abuse community. It helps the community of survivors. It truly does. So I appreciate it so much. Remember, every time I make a video, the lights behind me are lit in honor of every single one of you. I will never make a video in this chair in front of that bookshelf without having those lights lit for you. They're also lit for me. I'm a trauma survivor too. I'm included in that group, and I'm proud to say so. I survived. You survived. Every single trauma survivor right now on the planet, we all have what in common? We're survivors. And then this right here, this light, that candle. Every single time I give a talk from this chair in front of that bookshelf, that candle right there, that one, will always be lit in honor of those who did not and could not survive the trauma and abuse. Whatever happened to them, whether they were taken off the planet too soon by someone else's actions, or if they used the ultimate escape hatch and went non-physical because they didn't get proper care and treatment for my goodness, so they were so deserving of care. They were so deserving of support. But if they didn't get it, and they saw no other way to get that PTSD or complex PTSD movie that's running in their head to stop hearing them being told awful things or feeling the experiences and the pain of reliving their trauma, no matter how it happened, I will always honor those people, the people who didn't survive. And the rest of us who are surviving can honor them for just a second and say, we know about your battle. We know how hard you fought. We know how brave you were. We know how undeserving you were for what happened to you. And we know how infinitely, can't even quantify it in English language words. We know how infinitely worthy of life you were. We know how infinitely worthy of love, respect, care, approval, attention, acceptance, kindness and compassion and attunement you were worthy of every single bit of that and more. Just like you. We're all worthy of these things. But some of us believed that we weren't and decided to take ourselves off the planet because it was too painful to stay. So one piece of information at a time. I'm not supporting or advocating for suicide. What I'm saying is we can understand the trauma aspect of suicide and recognize that when someone is ready to make that choice, use the ultimate escape hatch, it's not necessarily because they're mentally ill. It could be that their level of pain is so severe that they cannot stand it anymore for one more moment. So that's why trauma recovery is important. Trauma recovery is incredibly important work. Not patting myself on the back for being a trauma recovery coach. Please don't hear it that way. I'm speaking about every single trauma survivor who has to do some degree of work. And I don't like to call it work. I prefer to call it self-dedication. But when we become dedicated to feeling good and understanding I have a path to feeling good. Why? Because I'm still alive. Then I can do that. I can get there. I can get to be in that place where I see other people just with ease and flow, just doing the things that they love to do, want to do, need to do. There's some of you who watch these videos that could say, I haven't been outside of my apartment in literal months to years. Everybody goes past my windows every day and they're all out there living, and I don't know how to get to that. I just don't know. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about unfreezing. We're talking about healing. The coach, the trauma coach, or the mental health professional does not heal you. We give you every single thing that we could ever possibly give you so that you can heal yourself. You can do that hand in hand with your creator if you so choose. You can do it hand in hand with your spiritual ancestors if you so choose. You can do that hand in hand with the saints and angels if you choose. Or you can do it hand in hand with the spirit that's inside of you, that is alive, it's well, and it wants to help guide you. It wants to heal you. So we have it on board. We came into this time-space reality with it on board. And sometimes it takes a trauma practitioner to help you to understand that and access it. You have it on board. It's just, we would love to show you how to plug in and tap into it. And you can absolutely ask for and work in coordination with whichever healing being that you love, believe in, worship, or care about. None of that's wrong. All of that, every single person, their own way. So I'm going to wrap up this video now by saying, if you would like to become a client with me, Lin Bouthillier, CTRC, you can find me at linbouthillier.com. You can go to my website and you can see that I am there offering sessions for my clients. I offer a 20-minute discovery call, but I will never tell a client, oh, 20 minutes, time's up, I gotta hang up now. I will stay on the phone with you. It had to be named something, right? So I named it 20-minute discovery call, but I will stay on the phone with you until every last one of your questions has been answered to your satisfaction about the process of trauma recovery coaching. But in one of those discovery calls, I cannot, through the code of ethics, I cannot do any coaching because it would be unsafe for you and it would be unsafe for me without having all of the initial protocols completed first. And that's what we do the first 3 sessions of working together. Then after that, we are cleared for takeoff and we can go to wherever you want to go in whatever direction you want to go with your healing. This is completely client-led care. Trauma recovery coach plays the support role and is the co-equal side-by-side peer in the trauma recovery process. I get so excited about talking about it. So if you're interested in that, if you're over 18 years of age, you may reach out to me at any time through my website, linbouthillier.com, or by email, lin@linbouthillier.com, or by phone. You can call me 716-994-3052. I appreciate all of you so much from my heart. I truly want you to understand, to know, to inherently know inside of yourself that you are so worthy of your own trauma recovery, and that self-care is never, ever selfish. It is essential to well-being. We must accept that being engaged in self-care isn't selfish. Don't believe it if anybody tells you that. It's not selfish. It's essential to well-being. Okay? Have the very best day, everyone. Thanks again for joining me. See you next time.